This week, we honour the dead and the living, who first solidified to the world stage the strength, courage and genius Australians could bring to bear. This week, we mourn and remember the beginning of the Gallipoli campaign on this its 103rd anniversary. When Empire, King and Country called, these young men, often not even of legal age to volunteer, signed up in their hundreds of thousands to fight for their newly federated homeland. To war these young men went, for the first time wearing the uniform of Australia and the iconic slouch hat. These young men, cooped up on board troop ships, seasick, nervous, full of bravado, entered their landing craft completely unaware of the meat grinder they were about to walk into, nor that by the end of this day, April 25th, 1915, a legend had been born whose immortality was assured. These young Aussies charged up the sandy expanse of the beaches directly into machine gun, cannon fire, as artillery screamed over their heads and detonated in the sand, aerosolising tons of Turkish earth, along with a dozen or so Anzac soldiers who were unfortunate enough to be on that piece of ground at that moment. Still, retreat nor surrender never entered their minds. In trenches where distance to the enemy wasn't measured in miles, but feet and inches, raids across no man's land, and the terror of being called upon to go over the top. These men earned their status of immortals, of legends, whose memory is burned upon the very fabric of existence itself. Today, as we look back and pay our respects, we are protected by seeing only stone memorials, epitaphs, and seemingly endless fields of white marble tombstones, each one a testament to a mate, a brother, a father or a son who was never returning home. This protection offers us a certain distance, a certain cleanliness, honouring not only the dead, but the living, who serve still, and these who have returned with their debt to their nation fulfilled. Let us remember also, for a moment, those men who came home, the shell-shocked, the crippled, the men with the 1,000-yard stare, the men who had seen their brothers bleed to death in the sand, drowned in the mud of no man's land. These men who carry the screams of the dying, the gurgled cries for mother, the wounded soldier begging with a medic to intervene with God on their behalf, the last breath of a mate who you will never again see in this lifetime. These are scars that cannot be visually seen, that cannot be corrected by plastic surgery or prosthesis. These scars are our debt, the price we must accept if we are to once again be a free people. What will we say to these men today if we found ourselves called in front of them to account for the current state of Australia? How could we look them in the eye, say modern Australia is worthy of their sacrifice? How could we explain to them that we threw away everything they built, everything they fought and died for, on a farcical idea of universal human brotherhood? That our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, our Anglo-Saxon tolerance and benevolent generosity, had been usurped and used against us while we meekly stood on and watched, acquiescing to each and every one of more and more laughable demands from interlopers who have contributed nothing to this nation, while demanding a larger and larger majority of the spoils. These men, these heroes, these Anzacs would weep. These men would do what had to be done. Why are we sitting while the beauty, the miracle of Western civilization hemorrhages into the sands of current events? Only we can save her. No one is coming to help us, while every other race on earth cares inwardly, ensuring the health and well-being of their own people. Only we as whites feel this pathological need to focus and care about all others before ourselves. Universal brotherhood fails on this premise. If only whites hold its tenets, then it is not universal. If only whites share the spoils of their nation, asking nothing in return, while all other races jealously protect their cultures and traditions, it is not brotherhood. Universal brotherhood of man is an obsession of certain racial groups, as a weapon to be used against others, but never themselves. Common wisdom tells us never to stare too deeply into the abyss of your obsession. This time, These groups, in their desperate obsession to genocide the most accepting and generous race on the planet, this time, to their great dismay, they have found our Anzac legends staring back at them. The summer of isolation into the Anglosphere, into real brotherhood, is at hand. To honour our Anzac and to preserve the nation and ideals they fought and died for, how can we as Australians